Are you having trouble coming up with storylines for your universe mode? Or do you find yourself just wanting to play the game instead of spending so much time setting up rivalries? Well, I have 5 amazing storylines to easily plug and play to make your universe mode a million times more fun. Let's hop into it. Our first storyline is some chaos in the world title scene. After your face world champion successfully defends their title at the most recent PLE, they are shockingly attacked backstage by a masked figure, and it leaves the fans wondering who it was that attacked him or her. Then the following week, the GM would come out to make an announcement, and that is the champion will be out of action for the foreseeable future, and the title will now be up for grabs. The GM is interrupted, however, by a heel contender who seems just a little bit too excited about the attack, and they want their shot at the title. The GM says they'll need to compete in a tournament to crown the new champion of the vacant world title. The next week, the heel contender would come out, take on a face opponent to move to the championship round of the world title tournament, and the heel would end up getting the win in this tournament match. Then at the Go Home show the following week, before the PLE, another semi-final tournament match would take place to decide the heel contender's opponent at the PLE for the world title. At the end of the show, though, the heel contender would attack their soon-to-be opponent backstage, heading into the PLE. At the PLE, the heel contender would then take on their now hurt opponent, which gave them a big advantage and ultimately helped them win the world title at the PLE. Fast forward 2 months later now, your new heel champion has continued to hold on to their title for the past 2 months, and they decided it's a good idea to come out for a promo and talk down on the locker room. As he or she is going in on how weak they view the locker room to be, the former face champion makes a shocking return and attacks the heel champion, making it clear who their attacker was a few months ago and put them out of action. The following week, the heel champion comes out for a promo where he or she says the attack on them by the face the prior week was disgusting and they should be suspended. The face comes out to interrupt and laughs at the heel, saying that they should be the ones suspended after attacking them and putting them out of action for a few months. The face goes on to say last week was just the start of their revenge, but it won't end until they get back their world title. The heel says the face won't get a title shot after the attack last week and walks out. Then the following week, the heel champ would come out for another promo where they call out the GM, saying that they refuse to ever give a title match to the face and that they demand a suspension of the face. The GM would come out and laugh at the heel and say that not only will there not be a suspension, but a match for the world title is official for the next PLE and it will be a street fight. At the Go Home show the following week before the PLE, it seemed that the time for words was completely finished, as the heated rivalry between the face and the heel led to a backstage brawl between the two stars heading into the world title match at the PLE. Our next storyline will be between 2 contenders in the world title scene for the men or the women. In the first week, following a loss in a world title match at the most recent PLE, a face comes out for a promo where they open up and admit they weren't the better man or woman that night, but their title chase isn't over. Out comes a heel contender who laughs at them, says of course they weren't the better man or woman at the PLE because they've fallen off and aren't championship material anymore, like the heel themselves. The face responds by saying if he or she has fallen off, then what does that make the heel contender since they haven't had a title shot in God knows how long? The heel looks angered, but the face walks out on him or her before the confrontation could get physical. The following week, the heel contender would attack the face contender backstage as a clear response to their tense interaction in last week's promo, as this brewing rivalry finally begins to get physical. Later that night, though, the face contender was scheduled for a singles match as they looked to get back on track after their PLE loss, but just before the match could get going, the heel contender made their way down ringside and would later attempt to distract the face to try and make them lose their match. The next week, though, the face would come out for a promo and was clearly fired up after their last week's attack and distraction from the heel. He or she would call out the heel to a match for that night, but the heel would come out and decline as he or she tells the face that they already have a match later in the night. The face responds by saying it would be a shame if someone else got involved, like in his or her match last week, and then walked out. Later that night, just before the heel's match would get started, the face contender would make their way down ringside, just like the heel did the prior week, but instead of trying to distract the heel during their match, the face would ultimately jump into the ring and attack the heel as they looked for much needed revenge. At the Go Home show the following week before the PLE, the main event would be a singles match between the face and the heel contenders, as their short-term rivalry was set to come to an end, with the winner being put in the driver's seat for a title match at next month's PLE. Our next storyline starts as a world title feud, but then evolves into a War Games match to end it. In your first week, a heel faction leader who is currently your world champion comes out for a promo after months of successful title defenses with the help of their faction. The heel comes out to say that there is no threat left to take their title, so everyone needs to accept who runs the WWE. The heel would then be interrupted by a beloved face who hasn't been in the title picture for a while and may seem like a little bit of an underdog. The face responds by saying there's a lot more talent in the back that is tired of their numbers game and are ready to take the title off of the heel. The heel laughs and says he or she will be nice and let the face get out of their ring, even though the face showed disrespect by coming out to interrupt him or her. The face refuses and says the bully tactics won't work anymore. With that, the heel says, "Fine, have it your way," and walks out. The following week, the show opens backstage as the heel faction attacks the face backstage. As this attack is what the champion was alluding to last week at the end of their promo by having it their way. Then the next week, the face contender comes out for a promo calling out the heel champion, saying that he or she doesn't care about the numbers game and that the adversity will prevail. The heel contender comes out laughing once again at the face, saying he or she needs to live in reality before quickly attacking him or her once again. At the Go Home show before the PLE, the GM comes out to make a couple of announcements. He or she states that the face contender suffered a minor injury, so they will not be on the show that night. However, they will be ready to go Saturday to take on the heel champion for the world title. The heel champion comes out to interrupt the GM as he or she's angry about the last-second title match announcement. The GM tells the champ that the match is final, and if they refuse to compete, then they will be stripped of their title. At the PLE, the heel champion would take on the face underdog contender. Ultimately, the face doesn't seem 100%, and the numbers game from the heel faction would be too strong as the heel champion would retain their title. Following the PLE, the heel champion would come out for a promo to once again rub it into the locker room about how no one is able to beat them for their world title. The face contender would come out to interrupt them, saying everyone knows there are plenty of superstars good enough to defeat the heel, but they would never admit it and would rather hide behind their faction. The heel didn't like this and would attack the face contender once again. Then the next week, it was clear the locker room was tired of the heel champion and his or her faction, as two other past opponents of the heel champion would attack two members of the heel faction backstage. The next week, the heel champion would come out angry after the attack, calling out the faces. The face contender would come out, but instead of responding, he or she would attack the heel champion to get even. At the Go Home show before Survivor Series, the face contender would come out for a promo saying the numbers game is over and the heel faction's time is up, before going on to challenge the heel faction to War Games against him and herself along with three other past world title contenders. The heel champion would then come out and accept, and they would finish the night brawling in the ring, heading into the War Games match at Survivor Series. Our next storyline will be some chaos in the Midcard division. Following a PLE, a match is set to take place to decide the #1 contender for a Midcard title. At the end of the match, the heel Midcard champion would come out with their title and meet their new #1 contender in the ring for a stare down, as the tension between the two is immediately high. The next week, the #1 contender is attacked backstage by the superstar that they had beaten the prior week to become the #1 contender, as last week's loser is still clearly upset about their loss. Later that night, a rematch is set between the two contenders, but as the #1 contender for the Midcard title is making their entrance, he or she is attacked by the Midcard champion. Even though the #1 contender is not 100% after the attack, he or she would still go on to win the rematch and getting revenge on their opponent for his or her backstage attack earlier that night. Then the following week, the GM decided to put the Midcard champion in a non-championship match as a punishment for their entrance attack on the #1 contender during the prior week. During the match, the #1 contender would come out and attempt to distract the Midcard champion by stealing their title from ringside and attempting to run off with it, which forced the champion to take their eyes off of their opponent. Then the following week at the Go Home show before the PLE, the heel Midcard champion would come out for a promo and say the #1 contender should be punished for interfering in his or her match last week, and ultimately they should lose their title match because of it. The #1 contender would come out and laugh at the champion, saying that he or she shouldn't have started the problem if they didn't want a response. The heel champion would then attack the number one contender as they would end up brawling heading into their mid-card title match at the upcoming PLE. Our next storyline revolves around a heel faction having the numbers game. A face and a heel that is part of a faction are set for a match on your weekly show, but during the match, the referee would take a bump, which then allowed a heel faction member to toss a chair into the ring for the heel to steal the win with the chair shot. Then the following week, the face would come out for a promo, calling out the heel and his or her faction for their chair shot the prior week. The heel comes out and tells the face that he or she would have won the match if they were as smart as him or her. The face laughs at them and says they aren't smarter, but if they want to put it to the test, then the faction member that threw the chair into the ring last week can face them tonight. So later that night, the face took on the heel faction member, but during the match, the heel faction member tried to leave when the match wasn't really going in their favor. But out of nowhere came an ally of the face to stop the heel faction member from leaving and helping the face get the win. The next week, the heel faction member would attack the face and his or her ally backstage to get revenge for being outsmarted last week during their match. This would set up a tag match between the heel faction and the face and his or her ally, with the winning side getting some more momentum in their rivalry. Then the next week at the go-home show before the PLE, the face and the heel would meet once again to put an end to their rivalry, as the faction was in the heel's corner and the ally was in the face's corner for their final match. And those are all the storylines I got for you guys. Make sure to check out my other storylines videos. The link is in the description below, and I'll see you guys next time.